Disclaimer. None of the songs, including intro, artworks, including thumbnail, or characters in the video are mine. This is not an accurate portrayal of the characters. This is not a defamation of character either. This is only for entertainment. Warning. Foul language, grammatical mistakes, typographical errors. Sakusa eyed the sheepish girl that came out of his house in a hurry. The girl smiled at him slightly when she saw him. Sakusa frowned. He gagged at the strong smell of combined cheap, overly sweet female perfume, and the overpowering smell of male perfume. Another one, huh? Sakusa sighed, already knowing what he's going to see behind the door. He stopped at the entrance of the Sakusa household when he heard the loud arguing voices of his parents. It's the first day of training camp and his parents requested him to stop by the mansion first before he goes to camp. So here he is now, bringing in another woman. Seriously, you say that to me as if you're not constantly sleeping with your bodyguard. At least I only sleep with one person, and he's my bodyguard. Nobody will be suspicious if we're together. You bring in a different slut every other night. Do you really think people won't notice? Oh, shut up. No, you shut up. You may not care about your image, but I care about mine. I'm one of Japan's top models. What would people think if they found out my husband is cheating on me? Do you know how embarrassing that would be? I'd look like a total loser. People won't find out. How can you be so sure? What if you got someone pregnant? What then? Sakusa swallowed hard as he listened to his parents argue. Sakusa was born into a rich, traditional family. That also means that most of the couples in their family was made through arranged marriage. His parents are no exception. His father's side of the family are engineers and businessmen. Well, the men are. The women are just supposed to sit still and look pretty. That's how they chose Sakusa's mother. Since his mother's side of the family consists of a long line of models, his parents absolutely despised each other. Mama Sakusa blames his father for all the lost opportunities in her career. And his father, well, he's in love with someone else. His mother's cousin. What happened is, Mama Sakusa's cousin was a model too, but she didn't want to be. She wanted to be an engineer, but her family put beauty and grace above all others, and engineering, which also requires heavy lifting, is not beautiful nor graceful. So of course they forbid it. She ran away and attended college to be an engineer, where she met Sakusa's father. Papa Sakusa fell hard. He knew his marriage was going to be arranged, so he tried to arrange his own marriage with her. Except the bride was no longer a part of the family, nor did she want to. But the arrangements were all finished already. All that was missing was a bride. So the family pushed forward his mother instead. And they hated each other ever since. His father copes with it by sleeping with any girl that jumps in his bed, while his mother is in a relationship with her bodyguard. So his parents arguing are nothing new. Before their voices rise even more and sending him into a panic attack, he cleared his throat, gaining his parents' attention. He saw the surprise in their faces before they morphed into awkward smiles. Kyumi, you're here. Mama Sakusa stepped forward and kissed his cheek. What are you doing here, Kyumi? Not that I don't want you here. I'm just surprised. Sakusa smiled bitterly. They forgot about me again, huh? You told me to stop by on my way to the training camp. That's today. Sorry dear, I have a lot of things in my mind, so I lost track of time. Sakusa just nodded. Well, take care. Sakusa just nodded again. His father cleared his throat awkwardly. You should get going. We don't want you to be late. Sakusa bowed slightly, then left. He doesn't know what to feel. Should he be disappointed? Why would I be disappointed? I'm used to it. Or should he be relieved to get out of his parents' presence? It's probably a mixture of both, but Sakusa has no time to ponder about his feelings when he has to face another person who keeps on sending them in a disarray. His heart is beating faster and faster as he gets closer to the training camp venue. He placed his palm flat on his chest in an attempt to calm it down. To no avail. Am I excited or anxious to see Atsumu? Atsumu could feel his anxiety rocket as he entered the building. He could feel every drop of his sweat drop. He can hear his blood flow and he wants to puke his breakfast out. He heard his name get called and he turned around and saw Komori waving with a wide smile on his face as he jogged towards him. Atsumu hi. Atsumu paled and didn't speak for a few moments, biting his tongue to keep his mouth closed and the contents of his stomach inside his stomach. Komori hi. Komori frowned. Are you okay? You look pale. Komori grasped Atsumu's wrist and started pulling him. Come on, I'll bring you to the clinic. Kyo's not here yet, but I'll contact him. Atsumu wrenched his hand away from Komori as he looked at him with confusion. Atsumu? Komori. Sakusa and IB broke up. Komori's jaw dropped in surprise. What? I didn't know. Kyo never told me. Atsumu laughed bitterly. Of course he hasn't. He probably didn't think it was important enough. I'm sorry. I really didn't know. Atsumu smiled tightly. It's fine. They stood there awkwardly until Sakusa arrived. Hey Moto. He paused when he saw Atsumu. Their eyes met and Atsumu couldn't take it. He turned around and ran away, ignoring the complaints of the people he pushed out of the way. He didn't expect for his reaction to be that severe. He thought that he would have been able to at least face Sakusa, but seeing him now, personally, is bringing out all the emotions he didn't even know he pushed down. He had to get away, otherwise he'd cry. And he's done looking pathetic in front of Sakusa. He went straight to his assigned room and plopped face down on the bed. He knows that there would be an orientation and that food would be served there, but he doesn't care. He'd rather starve than face him again. Besides, he's a third year. He has privileges since he's of legal age. He'll just get permission to eat outside later. Maybe he can even go visit Oikoa and Midorima and Kevin. With that thought, Atsumu fell asleep, small tears falling from his eyes, unable to stop all of them. Atsumu woke up when he heard rustling in the room. He opened his eyes and stared blankly at the window, his brain still not fully awake. He registered a dip on his bed as well as a gentle hand carding through his hair, making him even more sleepy. His guess was that it was Midorima massaging his scalp. He always do that when Atsumu has a hard time sleeping. Or it could be Koa. He didn't think it through very hard, opting to push his head into the warm hand, almost purring, until the other person spoke. Achu. Then Atsumu suddenly remembered where he is. He jumped off the bed and wrenched himself from Sakusa. The motions were so sudden that his vision blacked for a second and his head is still slyly spinning. He pressed himself into the wall as he cautiously eyed Sakusa, who was watching him with an expression that Atsumu would call concerned. If he was still blind to how Sakusa treated him, he ignored the look and the emotions it made him feel. Well, what are you doing here? We're roommates. Atsumu's heart sunk into the pit in his stomach. Oh. There was a few minutes of awkward silence before Sakusa cleared his throat and stood up. It's time for dinner. Atsumu pressed his lips into a thin line as he nodded slightly, waiting for Sakusa to leave, but he didn't. Are you coming? You should go ahead. I still have to fix myself. Sakusa nodded, then sat back down on Atsumu's bed. I'll wait for you. Atsumu swallowed thickly, his eyes heating up. Why are you doing this? Why are you treating me this way? You dumped me. Threw me away like the trash you see me as. Why are you being so sweet? Why are you acting as if nothing happened? I almost died. Atsumu bit his lip to stop the cry from escaping him, his entire body trembling as he curled into himself and pressed himself further into the wall. He's so confused at how Sakusa's treating him. It makes him want to puke, want to cry, want to scream. It makes him want to run into Sakusa's arms and hope again. Achu. Atsumu's vision is hazy, his thoughts clouding his mind, and they all say the same thing. Move, run, get away from him. Atsumu gathered the calm he has left that isn't shrouded by panic, and blinked away the tears before clearing his throat and moving away from the corner of the room, moving away from Sakusa. You can go ahead, Sakusa. I won't be going to the cafeteria since I'm going to meet up with my friends outside. Sakusa hesitated, almost wanting to argue, but Atsumu didn't give him the chance to. He grabbed his phone and his wallet and stiffly walked out and went into the restrooms. Once he got there, he locked himself into a stall and focused on calming down. He was hyperventilating and tears filled his eyes as oxygen failed to enter his system and it burned. He clenched his fist on his thighs, trying hard to take in shuddering breaths. It took a few minutes until he finally calmed down. He took a few more minutes to just breathe. He went out of the stall and washed his face, trying to remove the obvious traces of a breakdown. After that, he walked towards the cafeteria where he knows the event organizers are. The moment he stepped foot into the cafeteria, he felt a piercing gaze on him, watching his every move, and he knows exactly who it's from. Getting permission to go out was surprisingly easy. It's probably due to the fact that he looked like a mess. The organizers just reminded him to be back before curfew, which is midnight. It's only 7 p.m. so he has a lot of time. He thanked them then almost ran out of that place. He then took a cab to Midorima's place. Atsumu doesn't know why he didn't go to Ikoa. His best friend is also in Tokyo after all, and Ikoa's presence always comforted him. But right now, everything in Atsumu is screaming at him to go to Midorima, and Atsumu's not in a stable enough mind to question why. Midorima opened the door and was surprised to find Atsumu. Before he could say something, Atsumu collapsed on him. Midorima took a slight step back in surprise at the sudden weight on his hands. Atsumu just pressed himself closer to Midorima's body as he clutched his shirt. Atsumu-san? Midorima gently pulled Atsumu's shivering body into the apartment so he can close the door. Atsumu-san? He tried again, but Atsumu remained silent, opting to just tighten his hold on Midorima. So Midorima grabbed a hold of Atsumu's thigh, blushing slightly, and pulled him up. Atsumu instinctively wrapped his legs around Midorima's waist as he buried his face on his neck. Midorima plopped them on the couch next to Kevin, who looked absolutely ecstatic when he caught sight of Atsumu, his entire body bubbling. Then he immediately grew concerned when he saw how unresponsive Atsumu was. Kevin slid himself up Atsumu's thighs to gain his attention. Atsumu only moved his hand on top of Kevin to pat him, but nothing else. He remained still, straddling Midorima and face still buried on his neck. On his shoulder, he bubbled slightly before forming two arms and caressed Atsumu's face. Atsumu tilted his head and smiled at Kevin before pulling him close and pressing a kiss on top of Kevin's head before closing his eyes and falling asleep. Kevin following suit. Midorima massaged Atsumu's scalp as he listened to his breathing slow. He wanted to press a small kiss to the blonde's forehead but thought it was inappropriate, so he just pressed his chin to it for a few seconds instead. Then he pressed an actual kiss on Kevin's. He pulled the blanket over all of them, with Kevin acting like a heater inside the blanket. Then he closed his eyes, falling asleep to the sound of Atsumu's soft breathing. Atsumu blinked open, mouth dry and stomach rumbling. He hasn't eaten since lunch after all. He decided to go check the fridge if there was food, but first he had to get out of Midorima's grip without waking anyone else, which is next to impossible when they are stuck so closely together. Not to mention Kevin is still sleeping on his shoulder. He was able to get out successfully, gently putting Kevin into Midorima's lap. Then he tripped on the blanket and fell down on top of Midorima, surprising him awake and squishing Kevin, flattening him into a pancake. Midorima instinctively circled Atsumu's waist so he wasn't able to get up immediately. He was supposed to apologize when a muffled, small, high-pitched voice spoke. Papa, Papa, Papa. Atsumu looked below him in disbelief. Kevin was still struggling to get out from under his father's weight. Is Kev? Is what? Midorima snorted. Yes, Atsumu-san. Kevin can talk. Midorima slowly stood up, taking Kevin and Atsumu with him. He let Atsumu go and picked Kevin up, presenting him to Atsumu. Papa. Face with big pleading eyes. Loudly crying face. Kevin. Papa. Kevin. Papa. Kevin. Atsumu screeched as squished Kevin into his chest. Kevin was still chanting Papa while laughing, or bubbling in his case. Midorima watched them fondly. How did this happen? I didn't witness his first words. Loudly crying face. Well, his first word is Papa. If that makes you feel better. It does. Just a little bit. I still didn't witness it though. Atsumu pouted while Midorima laughed at him. Kevin is still bubbling in his father's hold. Anyway, Ruru, how did this happen? Well, Ikoa-san was able to teach Kevin to cook, as well as the fact that he screeched at us when he came to life. So I thought there's a high possibility that he can speak. And he can. Although it's very limited. As of right now, he only knows a few words and only 2-syllable ones at that. Atsumu screeched again while he jumps up and down. his arms extended upward and holding Kevin while he twirls them around. Kevin, sensing his father's excitement, also raised his arms and screeched while sometimes chanting Papa. Then a loud rumbling sound like thunder was heard around the room. Atsumu looked at his stomach and smiled sheepishly with cheeks tinged pink. Papa ma'am? Atsumu blinked at Kevin before smiling wide, biting down a squeal at his son's cuteness. Yes Kevin. Papa ma'am. Kevin nodded determinedly. Pooh. Pooh. Papa pooh. Atsumu cast a questioning glance to a silent Midorima who was just watching them with a small smile. It means down Atsumu-san. He can't pronounce down, and up is the opposite of down. Who is also the opposite of upsu. Atsumu nodded in understanding before putting Kevin on the floor. Kevin raced to the kitchen and Atsumu, who was surprised at his son's speed, just blinked at the space he left. He went straight to the kitchen after he processed what happened, only to arrive to the sight of Kevin on the stove, wearing a tiny chef's hat and an apron that says, "The world's hottest chef." Literally. It was obviously customized considering it fits Kevin perfectly. Atsumu cast Midorima an amused look. Midorima was avoiding his eyes with a blush. Midorima sat on the chair by the kitchen while Atsumu watched Kevin cook, throwing a few praises which made Kevin puff in pride. Kevin served them a simple sweet and spicy tuna steak while he eats fluffy pancakes. After they ate, Atsumu and Midorima worked together in washing and drying the dishes while Kevin sat on the kitchen counter watching his parents until he eventually nodded off. Atsumu cooed at Kevin for a few minutes before they moved to the couch, a sleeping Kevin beside them. "Are you okay Atsumu-san?" Atsumu remembered his dilemma at Midorima's words and exhaustion entered his body once more. He sighed then laid down, his head on Midorima's lap. Omi's at the camp too. Midorima stiffened at the mention of Atsumu's ex, anger spiking before he calmed it down. "He's also my roommate. Did he do something bad to you?" "Well, nothing bad, but..." Atsumu sighed again. "I don't really know. He's confusing me." Midorima stayed silent, waiting for Atsumu to elaborate. "He's just massaging Atsumu's scalp to help him relax. He was being sweet. I mean, maybe I'm just looking too deep into it because I still love him, but he was being gentle. He just, Atsumu sighed, covering his eyes with his arms as tears dripped down his face. "I'm sorry. I'm just really confused right now." "That's okay Atsumu-san. Just let it out. I'm here for you. But I don't want to let it out. I'm sick and tired of crying because of him. Atsumu tried to search for words that could describe his emotions, but he couldn't, so he just sighed in defeat. "Distract me, Ru. Please." Midorima studied Atsumu's pleading face for a moment before nodding. "Well, it's been a week and I need to cut my nails now. Do you want to paint it again Atsumu-san?" Atsumu smiled gratefully at Midorima. "Heck yes." Midorima apparently bought Atsumu tools as well as various polishes, and since it's Midorima, rich but naive at these things, he just bought many, enough to fulfill a nail tech's dream. Atsumu was overwhelmed but think it was absolutely sweet, which he told Midorima, who hasn't stopped blushing. What should I paint?" Atsumu is staring at Midorima's nails, trying to decide what pattern to paint. Then he remembered the dream catcher hanging on the side of the bed. Atsumu smiled. "Got it." Atsumu smiled mischievously at Midorima. "I'm going to paint your nails pink, Ruru." Midorima blinked. "Well, if you think it would look good then go ahead Atsumu-san." Atsumu squinted his eyes at him. "I'm really going to paint your nails pink." "Like I said Atsumu-san, you're more than welcome to." Atsumu scoffed. "Your trust in me is sweet but dumb." Midorima snorted. "I like to believe that I have good judgment." Atsumu rolled his eyes. "You need to learn to be cautious of people, Ruru. What if someone would take advantage of you? What if they try to paint your nails pink?" Midorima smiled amusedly. "Well, if they think that pink would look good on me then I'd trust their judgment." Atsumu grumbled, then proceeded to grumpily paint Midorima's nails while Midorima watched him in amused fondness. "I'm gonna put a bling on it," Atsumu muttered to himself, and Midorima snorted. "And done." Atsumu smiled at Midorima in mischief again. "What do you say now, Ru? I painted your nails pink. I put bling on your nails." Atsumu smiled smugly, as if he just taught Midorima a lesson. "I like it." "That's right, wait, what? It's pretty Atsumu-san. Thank you." Atsumu pouted, but it was evident with his pink cheeks that he was happy with the compliment. Well, now I feel guilty, so you have to paint my nails too. Midorima stopped admiring his nails to fix Atsumu a stare of disbelief. Atsumu-san, I don't know how to paint. Atsumu waved his hand. That's fine, Ruru. I just want to see what it looks like. Knowing that Atsumu won't give up, Midorima relented. Fine. But don't compel you in when it turns out ugly. It'll be fine, Ruru. They waited until Midorima's nails have dried before they proceeded with Atsumu's nails. Atsumu knew what he was doing though and just sat there smiling at him. So Midorima sighed and really thought about what to paint. In the end, he painted what Atsumu reminded him most of. After it was done, Atsumu lifted his nails and stared at it. I told you it's ugly. I'll go get the nail polish remover so we can remove it. Atsumu smiled softly. I like it. Midorima fixed him a deadpan stare before releasing a long-suffering sigh. Atsumu-san, please. It looks like it was made by a toddler. Atsumu shrugged with a smile. I like it. It seems innocent and really cute. Midorima sighed in defeat. Midorima painted the sun because it reminded him of Atsumu. Warm, bright, source of life, and Midorima cast the sleeping Kevin a glance, able to set things on fire. An hour later, Atsumu received a call. Yellow. Tsumu. Tsumu brightened at hearing Oikoa's voice. Koa. He instinctively shouted, then covered his mouth to see if he woke Kevin up before relaxing. When he didn't, he sent an amused Midorima a sheepish smile before excusing himself to go the veranda. How are you? I'm great. Atsumu raised an eyebrow even when Oikoa can't see it. What? I know Sakusa's at the training camp too, Tsumu. So how are you really? Atsumu sighed. I'm okay. I don't know. I'm just really confused right now. Atsumu sighed again as he leaned on the railing and looked up at the stars. He's my roommate too, so you know. Atsumu shrugged. What? Can't you swap rooms with someone else? Or live off-site? Atsumu sighed. I don't know. I don't really want to make a big deal out of it and tell everyone my issue. Plus, I feel like I've lost if I run away. Atsumu heard Oikoa sigh. Tsumu, please. He's your ex. It's normal for you to be hurt after a breakup. And it's not a fight. You won't lose anything if you run. In fact, you'll lose more if you stay and endure. Atsumu sighed again, knowing Oikoa's right. Fine. I'll ask tomorrow. Good. Atsumu huffed out a laugh at Oikoa's tone. He sounds like a mother. Anyways, wanna hang out tomorrow? You can get out, right? Yes. Yes, I can. Although I need to inform the people in charge. Great. Let's go out. Alex volunteered to watch Kevin for us. Or we can stay in and watch Kevin ourselves. Your choice. I feel like going out. Maybe I'll buy Kevin clothes too so he can go out. Great. I'll pick you up tomorrow. Sure. Then Atsumu remembered something. Oh hey Koa. Yes. Want to contact Sugar and the others? See who's free. Oikoa didn't answer immediately. He's not sure whether he wants them there or not, but if Atsumu suggested it, then maybe it's not as bad as he's thinking. Sure. Atsumu fiddled with his fingers as he stared at the huge building in dread. Atsumu-san. Atsumu smiled tightly at him. I'm fine, Ru. I need some time. Atsumu breathed slowly to calm his nerves before he goes inside. It's 30 minutes till midnight and he's standing in front of the training camp building. His anxiety rising at the thought of what, or WHO, he would find in the room. Papa. Atsumu huffed out a laugh at Kevin's voice. Midorima insisted on taking Atsumu back to make sure he's safe. They were planning on leaving Kevin there since he was sleeping and it's not safe if anyone saw a living lava. But Kevin woke up and cried when he saw them leaving. So they bundled him up in a towel to hide him from view and disguise him as a baby. Hey baby. Papa's just fine. Atsumu took Kevin from Midorima's hold and pressed a kiss on his forehead before handing him back to Midorima. Then Atsumu stood on his tiptoes, holding Midorima's arms as he pulled himself up and pressed a kiss on the taller male's cheek. Thank you, Ruru. With one last pat to Kevin's head, Atsumu walked in, leaving Kevin waving a hand at him and an incredibly red Midorima paralyzed. Atsumu calmed himself down on the way to his room, repeating to himself that Sakusa must be asleep already. Sakusa after all. follows a meticulous schedule, which includes going to bed at 9. He sighed in relief when he entered the room and the lights are out. Then the lights turned on and, "Where have you been?"